I've got this.
All right. Oh, this has a spot for like speaker notes and crap. Yeah, I should have done that, right?
We really should have done that.
Yeah, nope.
No, we were doing this while Cray was doing.
Shh. We totally made this PowerPoint in advance of today. That happened. Hi, everyone. I think you can see the top of my head. So we're going to do, why do I have to lose? Yeah, the schedule is out the window. We're just going to do it as it makes sense to get it done. Cool. So, why do I have to lose? Game theory with Dunn and Jill. Let's start off with our credentials about why you should listen to us about these things.
Let's start off with a mic check. Can I be heard from over here?
Can you guys hear Dunn?
Yes.
Not you. The people on the stream. Have you really sat as far away from the microphone as you can and not speak into it? Oh my god.
Intentionally.
It is like you do it intentionally though.
That is incorrect.
They said very quiet.
What else is new?
You want to try that one more time?
Speaking, talk.
Can you guys hear Dunn now?
Hi, Jill, I'm in your bubble.
I don't have a bubble.
Little
Oh,
better.
Okay, well they can hear you. So it's just podcasting all over again. Done.
Actually, isn't this normally how we're doing podcasts? I'm like,
It
hi.
is. You're just on this side instead of that one.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with our credentials about why you should listen to us when it comes to game theory. What you all may or may not know is that I have done classes in game theory because I thought I was going to be one of those people who made video games. No, I was not. Applications are better. Video games are too much physics. But I did all of the game theory classes, so I do have like at least a year of training in game theory about how you balance a game and what you do. And from there, I started writing RPGs. I have credits under various names in Paizo and WotC and John Wick Presents. So I have made various games in some of your more favorite systems, but I've also made my own games, standalone games such as things like Wheeled. You can't find it. I don't own the rights to it. I make zero money if you buy it. So if you find it, don't buy it. But if you want it, I'll find a PDF for you. So, but I've made my own games, so I have years of training in that. Then I came into Toko's and I started putting all of that training into effect. So probably most of you will, since so many of you are long-term players, you will have noticed that how our systems work has dramatically changed from about 2018 onward. That's when I got in control of it because I raised my hand and said, I know how math works. And everyone else went, yeah, okay, I hate math, you do it. And I was like, I'm happy to do it. Dunn has been doing this with me the entire time. She knows more about game theory than most people.
Then I actually think I do.
Yeah, you know more about it than you think you do. And you know more about how the technology works behind it than you think you do. Her company, so the company she works at, every time she talks to IT, they're like, why aren't you in IT? She's like, I don't know. So we have the backing behind this, and this is what we base it on. And we pivot all the time when we see that something is not working. We make changes fast, we fail fast, we reorient. So that's our credentials behind why you should listen to us about why you have to lose. Any questions?
You're intimidating the room.
I can't help it. I'm an intimidating presence. All right. Oh, this does work exactly as it. So first up, what's a game? The key aspect of a game is you can win and you can lose. So first up, let's go over some examples. Risk. Has everyone heard of Risk before? All right. Risk is a game where you all have little troops, you move to different countries, and then you roll some dice against somebody else. And whoever rolls the highest, their people stay in the country and the other leaves. There is a very specific win condition. Take over the world. Right? But you have pieces on a board, you roll dice, and there's a win or a lose for every roll, and then an overall win or lose condition in the game. Risk is a game because it has win, lose, pieces, and variables at play. Another example, Dungeons and Dragons. It is a game. There is a win and a lose condition. It's just more flexible than something like Risk. Every game has a different success and failure, And it's really up to the people at the table, did we win or did we lose today? But you can lose, it's just that those conditions are a lot more variable. And there are things in the game you can control and things in the game you can't control. There are dice being rolled, there's a random element at play. Puzzles, like jigsaw puzzles, are not a game. Puzzles are not a game. You cannot lose a puzzle. Every single time you do the exact same thing as you did before, you will get the exact same outcome. It's not a game. Riddles are not a game. Puzzles, riddles, there's many things like that that people attribute to being games, but they're not, because you cannot lose, and that is a key element of what a game is. Questions about that? Okay.
I lost the riddle in World Tour and wasn't plunging down.
Yeah, but they're all fake losses. Yeah.
Except for the mock rock ones, you did actually have to figure those ones out.
Yeah, you actually did have to figure out the mock rock ones. If you didn't, you got stuck, and we had to help people get through them. They were a game. You could lose. You could not complete it without completing them. They were an element. So puzzles, riddles, things of that nature can be elements in a game, but they in themselves are not games. Tokotas is a game. We are an ARPG, an art role-playing game. So our win conditions can be much closer to something like Dungeons and Dragons. It's more variable. It's more personalized what your win condition is, but you can win and you can lose. Why does it matter if we are a game or not a game? First up, because if you always win, it's boring as shit. If you always get exactly what you are after, it is boring. Oh, thought you had a thing to tell me. My bad. So if you always get what you're after, it's boring. If you always get what you're after in breeding or in activities, if every single activity brings you back an elemental part, it is boring. The success becomes not success after time. It's just status quo, and you will lose interest in something that you succeed at every single time without any effort. There's no longevity in something where you can never lose. For the exact same reason, it's boring. And there's no competition. Something that drives most games is there's some form of competition that's going on with what you're doing. Via either you're competing against the game, which is usually what's happening when you're doing like activity rolls. You're not competing against anybody else. You put your odds in, and the game rolls, and you success or you failure. And sometimes it's as legitimate as this activity failed versus this activity succeeded. But then it could be, I'm after a bandos and I didn't get them in this roll, so this roll wasn't a success, even though you got things. So there's different levels of success in our game. There is against the math, which is usually things like breeding. You are doing what you can to put the best odds in your favor to get what you are after, but there's no guarantees in Tokos. There's very few guarantees in Tokos on purpose. And then finally, sometimes your competition is against other players. And this comes in lots of different ways. It could be legitimately PvP competitions, or it could be, Kara got this super cool Toko that I am extremely jealous of, and now I want one. It's competition. It's a driving factor. But if everybody can get it on the first try, there's no competition. And competition drives. Oh.
He's gonna go potty.
Yeah. On the other side of the stairs. So sometimes the competition against other players, sometimes it's against the game world itself, and sometimes it's just against the math of what's going on right now. If it's a game, it has competition. You have odds. There is anticipation and fear that you will lose or you will fail. There's no fear you're going to fail a puzzle, and it's boring. Also, if you succeed all the time, it limits our ability to generate content. There's no point in making things that give you a better chance at getting things if you can do it. We can't make an item that guarantees you a heart every time, because then you'll have a heart every time. But we can make an item that increases your odds of getting a heart. And then other people can get that item as well. And we go and we also, there's another slide that's specifically about this, but the point is, if everyone can just succeed at everything, there's not a lot of content. As you will recall, in healing, we went back to the healing system and we completely redid it because you could always succeed. Or you could always prevent injury, which then made healing useless. And then we went to the healing system and we dramatically changed how it worked in response to putting more injuries back out there, right? So all these systems play into each other in that manner. So it limits content generation. I'm trying to remember if I have another one. Oh, yes I do. No fail items are bad. I know we have some totems like cat, I think it's bear totem, that do no fail. And technically they're bad, but that ship had sailed before I got here. So I removed other no fail items from the game that I could get away with. But no fail items are bad because you give yourself nowhere to go the moment there's a no fail or an auto success. That's why things like Twiggy have to stay extremely expensive to the point that most people don't think the resource is worth it every day of the week. And that's kind of how those pieces work. Okay, any questions on why it matters if it's a game or not a game? Okay. Let's talk about the unsexy economy of tokens.
Hi, Tonga.
Yep. Everything in Dakotas needs to be balanced. Earlier today, you heard me asking for a date. It was for this. Back in 2017, the Dakotas economy went into free fall because of game balance. There were many factors in that happening. Let me be really clear. I am not throwing shade at anybody. Not previous admins, not previous owners, not previous decisions being made. These are just facts. That's all it is. These things attributed to our game going into free fall in the economy. And as I joined the admin team, that free fall was beginning. And I want to say that KH and Locke did what they could to slow that descent with the limited power they had at the time. And then when Toko came around, we did a little more.
I see I've missed most of the presentation.
I'm so sorry. Some of those just weren't going very fast, or there wasn't much to say.
Just his timing.
Yeah, I know. So one of the big factors was leasing. Do you want to talk about leasing?
Oh, I'm interested to hear why leasing deserved to die.
Leasing did
Back
deserve
in
to
the
die.
day, you didn't have to own a Toko to use their cat, to have like a good role. You could just go to someone else and say, hey, can I use your Toko and bring back, get to keep all the items they bring back? And you're like, sure, here you go.
Or they could require you to give them one of the items.
They'd be like, if you bring back any sticks, you have to give the sticks to me, but anything else, you can keep.
Yep.
Which
So
meant that you didn't have to do any work to tap your Tokos.
leasing, for everyone who was not around for the land of leasing, how leasing worked is exactly what Seer would say. One person would have a super tacked out Toko, and remember we had like no fail rules in play at that point. It was tacked out to get everything, and before the activity rebalance had happened, these Tokos were generating tons of high value items every single roll. And then they would be leased. And when it's leased, you would go to someone and say, can I use your Toko? And they might be like, yes, but I get one of every 5 parts that you get. The rules were wishy-washy as hell. There was no clear rules about it either. Oh, I don't want anything. You can just use my Tokos. I don't care. Or I get all of the sticks. You get to keep everything else. So
I get all the hearts.
yeah, I get all the hearts. And that did happen. So we had 2-factor issue going on. One, these Tokos were getting an insane amount of rolls. An insane. We were in bank at the time, right?
Memorized bus's form. That was how that was, because I saw bus every single
Bus,
roll.
Toluta.
Coke.
Diet Coke, Toluta,
Fish was for a while.
Yeah.
Kish. There were Tokos that in bank, we knew what traits they had before we generated anything.
We
Because-
didn't have to open their imports.
Ever. We were like, oh yeah, I know that Toko. Let me just move forward. I'm sure activities, as Lou was saying, is the same thing. So there was about 4 or 5 Tokos that were severely overused. People were not working on their own Tokotas because why did they need to? They could just use Kish to get what they needed.
Yep.
The second part of that is because it was such an unregulated system, there were a handful of players who were getting too many good items to themselves because they put, predatory is the wrong word,
No,
Advantageous.
advantageous.
they were putting advantageous to themselves deals out there for leasing for everyone. So without them having to do any work, they were generating multiple high value items a week, if not a day. Leasing murdered our economy. It is actually the biggest factor in what killed the Dakota's economy in 2017. Elemental Hearts went from $80 to $20 in the span of a year because of leasing. That's what did it. So that's why leasing got stabbed prejudiciously with a knife multiple times. And there were a fair chunk of
The
people.
important thing also with the elemental hearts was the switch from required elemental hearts for physical traits.
Yes.
Yes.
Soul for water. That was also a big part of that.
That was a factor in what happened with Elemental Hearts, is to pull powers out of them. And it did have an effect on their value. It did. I truly believe, though, that leasing is the biggest attributor to what happened to their value. Because we went from, in like 2016, some maybe like 10 or 20 hearts for a 2,000 player game a month to a week, every couple days, because those Tokos are just being used so much and they generate hearts. It's a numbers game. Because it's a numbers game, that's how it went down. So leasing was actually one of the biggest issues that happened for us. And then too few people had too many resources, so they're sprinting ahead of everybody else and no one can catch up. Leasing was bad for the game. Sorry.
I'm sorry, just waving at Thomas.
The odds in our game were made by teenagers. Alright?
Yeah.
This is where the no shade comes in. The original owner of Dakota's was a teenager when she created the game, and obviously she made a cool concept. Yes, she had help, and those people get forgotten sometimes. And other people were doing jobs, admins were very important, but the reality is breeding odds, activity odds, right odds, all of this were created by teenagers who did not have a firm foundation in math or game theory. And it bit us so many times because little tweaks to the system would have huge effects that we weren't prepared for. Like, this is something we'll talk about now. The way that the breeding roller was created and the way that unique traits were put into it, did you know that your lovebirds had 0 effect for the first 2 years?
No, don't say that. I don't want to hear that.
But it's also true.
And
Was
that's just one of the things we discovered.
That's just one of the things we discovered in the breeding roller when we cracked into it for the first time. And no shade on the coder. Like, they did what they were told. I saw the same document, but because the person creating the odds didn't understand how math worked, they basically there was too many things that gave you 0 bonus. It happened across the board. That's just one of the most egregious we found. So the reality is, our odds were created by teenagers, and they didn't age well. They didn't do well. What works for 20 people doesn't always work for 200 people, doesn't always work for 2,000, and doesn't work for 20,000 people. That's how it works. Systems need to be more scalable. And then finally, we lacked automation. So we couldn't keep up with the amount of work that needed to be done. Putting things into the bank took forever. Just rolling activities took so long. People making forms, everything was an economy of time. And with the more and more players, it was requiring more and more people to do it. You needed more people running the game than playing the game to keep up with the workload. We had a lack of automation.
I think you need to explain the lovebirds thing. Everybody is in shambles right now.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't totally useless. It was what, 0.01
It was
in the end because of how they order of operations did.
because of the order of operations of how it went down. When you put lovebirds on there, you got a 0.001% increase to your odds. Which is ridiculous for a companion slot. But the reality is we found it so far into everything, we can't go back and re-roll everybody's roll. Like, it wasn't feasible. So many of the Tokos were sold or gone or to the shrine. It was what it was, so we fixed it.
For everybody's, we fixed that in 2018?
Yeah, we fixed this in 2018, guys. This
So
hasn't
this
been
has been
broken in a
fixed.
long time.
Yeah. Thank
This
God
isn't
for
like
that.
last week. No, this is 2018 moving to Tokone. We found it and we fixed it. And around the same time is Lua and HP
Yeah.
spearheaded a huge activity reroll, whereas Lua allowed the coder with a math brain to redo all of the odds.
Thank God for that.
So breeding got a facelift, just quietly in the back end, and activities got a much more public facelift. And those two things in conjunction with the automation stopped our economy from going into freefall. Like I said, tons of things. Leasing had to die. The odds needed revamped, and we needed automation. Because if you recall, you would put an activity in. You would get it back at the end of the month. You would put it into bank at the start of the month. It would maybe get processed 3/4 of the month through. You would then take it and transfer it to somebody else. And that's just to like send something somewhere. So it could take 2 months to give someone an item, right? And you're trying to make a trade? That's not reasonable. I want to put Furtsups on my breeding. I better have bought them 3 months ago. Like, that's just the reality of how that was. We lacked the automation to keep up with the numbers. In 2018, we made a bunch of steps to resolve that. It forced us to do a huge and very unsexy rebalance of the game for activities, which was rough on people. The end result stopped the prices from dropping further, and they have held pretty steady since 2018 and the introduction of Tokone. Now, some items go up and down, but hearts are basically the same value as they have been since 2018. Soul Pool water is a little cheaper than it was at that
I
time.
think it's getting a bump with the recipes right now, but
Yeah, it's getting a bump with the recipes. Crafting mats have held pretty stable. Trait tokens aren't getting any lower. HP is maybe a little cheaper because we made HP a little more accessible. And yeah, that's a little selfish. I have to make decisions between doing my own shit and running the game, so I chose run the game, and HP tokens allow me to keep up in the game. So, slightly selfish, but you all benefit from it. But basically, we had an unsexy economy, and now we have a stable economy. And when you don't have to worry about it, that's the best thing.
we don't have a stable economy. We have a Tonga economy. Look at that.
We have a Tonga.
A flirtatious economy?
I mean, you don't have to worry about the value of everything you're doing dropping every day. So yeah, that's basically what we are. And because we are not the economy, we also don't need to worry about it going up in price. People aren't making their living on Tokos for the most part. People make money here, and that's great. We want them to, but nobody's usually paying their rent on Tokos. So a stable economy is good. A growing economy isn't necessarily the goal. We don't want the price of hearts to go back up to $80. We don't. So we don't want the scarcity to hit that. We are in a holding pattern, and all the changes we make are towards keeping things stable, not growing. We have the benefit of being a game where we don't necessarily want a growing economy. Okay.
I need year-over-year increases in Toko profits.
My dude, if corporations didn't have to do that, we'd actually all be doing really fucking well right now.
I know.
Do you want to do stages of the game?
I suppose.
All right, I'll click the buttons. You just tell me when. All right, so now let's talk about how this relates specifically to Dakotas. All right, done.
We got 3 stages of gameplay here. So everybody goes through these, and you can go through these at variable speeds, which is why I didn't say, 0 to a year on this. Early, you're a new player. You just come into Tokos. Maybe you've played an ARPG, maybe you haven't. The things that are accessible that we tune to be accessible are things like the Rites of Fertility, Arms of Acna, Exploring, hunting, fishing, there's no gate mechanics on those. And then T1 adventures, they're the basic entry point. Then you move into the mid game where you're an established player. You've been here, you know how things go. Things like Rites of Dominance, caving, diving, the Dom activities, and T2 adventures are geared towards that crowd, which encompasses most of us. And then you have the late game players, which are long term, which is actually quite a few of us sitting here. You got Passage of the Alpha, min-maxed activity teams, and T3 adventures. Everybody goes through these states, and one of the things that was happening is we were kind of having the reverse pyramid on content, where we had a lot of early and not a lot of late. Well, we should have more early than late, but we had it reversed where we had tons of late game content, but there was very little to get you to there.
The curve was wrong. Like, there wasn't enough to get you to mid-game without being real motivated. Do you want to talk about bonding and what we did with that?
You know the bonding story a little bit more.
Okay, sure. So, bonding. You all recall it, well, maybe you don't. Anyone who doesn't recall it, bonding existed for Akotas. Akotas are an oxymoron. They made no sense. They were never supposed to be rare, but the only way you could do it was having a bonding certificate, and you needed to do like 6 other hoops. You had to be TCA rank 5, and you needed to get this beast certificate, which required like 10 steps, and then you could own a Akota. But they weren't supposed to be rare, guys. Yeah.
This was another one of those systems that the team at the time got handed and was told to make happen.
Yes, you got handed and told to make happen. I don't blame them. They were doing the best with what they were given. I just don't believe in holding on to tradition that doesn't make sense. So Akotas and bonding had to change. At the core, bonding makes a lot of sense for Tokos, doesn't it? Like, everyone is in, you're bonding with your Toko, and maybe it's 2 Tokos bonding together, maybe it's a handler bonding with them, but the entire point is to create stories and to become connected to your characters. So bonding, thematically, makes a lot of sense, but it wasn't accessible to anybody using it because you had to be TCA rank 5, and that is late-ass game. It is not early game. Even TCA rank 1 is truly mid-game, in my opinion, not even early. So we decided to change bonding, and we moved it off of Akotas only, and we moved it to all Tokos. And while we were having the conversation, there was a huge push from admins that it should be late game content. So we had to sit down and lay out what is early, mid, and late game content and educate a lot of admins on what that means. Because the average admin does not do game theory. The average admin is not planning the long sweeping longevity of the team. They are doing their redeems because they have a quota to meet. They are tracking, or they're judging designs, they are rolling activities. It is not their job to keep the game alive. It's our job. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But their opinions are wanted. Because if we just sit in a little echo chamber where we come to one agreement, that's not always the right idea. Plenty of times, people who it's not their job come in and say, what about? And we go, wow, that blew up everything to them. Like, yeah, holy crap, that blew up everything. Bonding was being pushed to late game. So we did a whole education session on early, mid, and late game and what falls into it. And what fell out of it is 70% of our content is in late game. That's not good. That's why we're not getting new players in the door. We have to have more early game. We have to have more accessible ways for new players to get in and to catch up while learning the things. And bonding is the perfect thematical thing to do. However, once we pushed bonding out, the late and mid-game players made a point. It was useless for them. Truly useless. There was nothing in bonding. It was like, it's not really for you. And they're like, yeah, but thematically, it's very Dakotas and I want to do it, but it's no use. So bonding basically grew to a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 system with scaling bonuses that are more useful where you are in the game. But you are not expected to really have tier 2 until you've established yourself, you have a couple of Dakotas, and you actually know how every basic system works. And that are the 3 stages of gameplay and how we look at every system So when we create something new, the first thing we do is where does it fit into early, mid, and late game content? Some things aren't early game. Passage of the Alpha, it's not meant for your early game system at all. Like when newbies come in and they start talking about, I'm gonna have 20 Poto tokens, I'm like, yeah, in about 2 years you will, I agree. That first alpha is hard. I don't know if you all remember that first alpha. Took me, I want to say it took me 9 months to get my first Toko to alpha. And since then, now I'm like, yeah, I can do it in a week if I need to. But that's the difference between new early game and the resources you have and what you know versus late game. So, the stages of gameplay. All right. Oh, oops, I should have moved on to this design, this tab as I started talking. So how do we keep our game healthy, and what do we do? One of the things we do is annual health checks of our systems. These usually happen in December. You want to know why we have December close? 1, we've all been working for 11 months with no pay. 2, this is a time to stop, implement big things into the game while it doesn't affect anyone's current progress, and we can come back with grace periods established. So we do annual health checks. I'm trying to remember what we've done health checks of recently.
UT and totems.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we did a UT health check where we literally went through every unique trait, checked how many Tokos have this trait, and if we can do something to make it more exciting to the game, and to decide where it fits into our 3 stages. And totems. We went through totems and we're like, okay, who doesn't have this totem? Why does no one have this totem? Because this totem's too hard to get.
Or not powerful enough to be worth the effort.
Yep. Let me think, what was my...
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not. Not at all. So it was... Oh. So... Totems were another one, and...
Totems? Did we actually do much change in totems? Very few
We did.
changed in the end.
We did a little in the end, but not a lot. Yes?
Why is turtle the amount of companions that it is?
Because it's an extremely powerful boost in conjunction with totemic blessing.
Yeah.
And we have to think about that. Like, once you have it, we can never take it away from you. One-time bonuses can be stupidly powerful because you have to keep putting resources into them. Permanent bonuses, if it's that powerful, you got to work for it. So it's 50, right?
Yeah, it's 50. We did make the update to allow Radiant and other things like that, the Timeless Ocarina, to count towards it, but because of its specific interaction with Totemic Blessing, it had to stay hard to get.
Because it's better than a black cat, isn't it?
Its boost is on par with a Black Cat and stacks, no diminishing returns. Its own bonus of no trash doesn't really matter.
Get its own bonus, but in conjunction with Totemic Blessing. As good as a black cat for all of your Tokos without a companion slot and no diminishing returns. Yeah, that's why it needs to be 50 companions, and I still don't have it. Or did I get it? No, I'm still short.
You still don't have it.
I think I'm still short, like 12 companions on my run towards it. So we do these annual health checks where we check all of those things, and everything comes in waves. That's why, like, breeding is huge, so we only tackle, like, one aspect of breeding at a time. Because could you imagine the main rebalance, the build rebalance, the and we haven't done markings. And actually,
Do not even.
I think markings are pretty solid, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, that system holds. But, like, mutations, could you imagine all 3 of those happening in one December where you get one slideshow where I tell you about all of this? Your brains would explode. Because mine would explode trying to make the PowerPoint.
I think there would also be riots in the street because everyone's breeding plans would just be out the window because all the numbers would be different.
Gone, right? You walk in December 2nd, we go, all of your numbers for literally everything you care about in this breeding is changed. You're welcome.
Yes, Tina, you are to blame.
You actually
With
are
love.
Tina. Yeah. She's to blame for the totem companion amount. So, that's basically, like, we do these things and we tackle certain things. What are we doing this December? Not sure yet. I'm going to see what hasn't been touched in a while and revisit it. That's why things like Faction got a huge overhaul. the one-on-one didn't work once we got into the higher level. You had one option or the other, and we watched the pendulum swing for years, right? Where everyone would be a pack leader, and then they would change the bonuses because nobody's a prestige breeder to give prestige breeder a better bonus, and then there would be better bonuses than pack leader, so we would all swing right back on over, and we would watch it do this for years.
And everybody would get mad that the same faction won several
Yep.
years in a row, and that would switch to the other, and like, oh, it hasn't been us.
Exactly. Everyone would get mad about that. And it was very difficult to manage with two because it worked for a group of 200 people. It didn't work for a group of 2,000. Although actually I think we were closer to 4 when we did the faction revamp.
No, we've been pretty 6 to 7 for a while now.
Yeah. I should go and see how many accounts are on Toko. So the pitch that everybody put forward was third faction. Let's have a third faction. I can't remember. Everybody had a name for it, but I can never remember it.
I thought was it Lore Keepers to begin with?
I don't know.
I think
You guys did like 95% of the work, so you just ran like the final stuff by me mostly.
Yeah, so I we're talking about a third one, and I go disc. Hear me out. 6 factions.
And I said 6 flags, let's go.
Yes, let's do this. And when we did the poll.
Yeah.
Old school Toko's polls are wild, everybody. If you haven't gone and looked at one in a while, you should go and look at one. I went and looked at the faction one this year and started rereading the comments, and it is wild in there. There are people who are nowadays like, I am a lore keeper, ride or die, who are like, I will never look at one of these other factions. And it's all over the board, okay? So it's like, don't hold them to what they said. They clearly changed their mind. What we did get out of it was people were looking for more variety in bonuses outside of breeding and activities. So we did that. So every faction is different. No faction has an exclusive bonus either. So everyone at least has 2 options of where they want to go if there's one bonus that you can't live without. And it works. Like, yes, we all know that there's a lot of people in KS, but with the changes that Disc made to how fatigue works and how that like stacks up, KS doesn't always win. And their numbers work against them constantly. Because if they have 30 people doing nothing, it drags them down. Versus TB, where there's like 8 of us that are insane and do a lot of work, so we can outpace everything that's happened in KS and take a couple wins. So
LK's been pretty fierce lately.
LK has been real fierce lately.
It has been ignoring this last time that they won. I think KS had a year that they did not win, so that's like, what, 4 rounds?
Yeah, it's like 4 rounds. And that's okay.
But Wilderness Trackers still have not had a single win. I'm working on it. It's only you.
Yeah. And each faction has like a theme, and the people who are in them, they actually tend to play in the style that's themed around what's going on there. So, sister get reviews to ensure. Yeah, no, I said that. Shift to big game standards. This is not me. I did not make these choices for us. Dunn made all of these choices for us to run to bigger game standards because she played more bigger games than me. So she would come back and say, the holidays. The holidays are a beautiful version of this. Do you want to explain your vision?
I mean, you kind of already explained it to them, but the holiday schedule is inspired by World of Warcraft and Subeda, which is like a Neopets site. They do their own non-denominational holidays that move in a cycle. Everybody always knows when they are, and everybody looks forward to them. So it evens out because we were having the spikes in activity. Huge spike at Toko Times, falls off all the way through summer until Toko Weens, spike at Toko Ween, fall off through December, and just wild swings like that.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of the holidays, we seem to have stabilized.
We have actually. Was it 2 years ago we noticed?
I think it was last year. We had to pull the numbers for Ella.
Last year we pulled the numbers. And our site is like every other site. We know how many unique visitors that we get a day. We don't know who you are, we just know the numbers. To be clear, we're not big brothering this. But we have normal analytics on our site where we check, and we do this to ensure that our site will always be up and that it can maintain the amount of people we're dealing with each day. in Toko's, before the holidays happened, everyone would show up for Toko times, and by May, we would be down to a skeleton crew worth of people, and we would have too many admins for the amount of work that was going on. Halfway through summer, like, people would be like, all right, Dakotas exist and I have time because I'm not at school anymore. And they would come back around, and then we'd have a huge spike at Tokoween that would maybe run us, like, half of it would fall off, some of it would come back and only do Advent, and it was like that. A year ago, we pulled the numbers, and when May came, and we were like, okay, here comes the drop-off. This is the point where if people are like, I need a break, I don't want to be an admin anymore, we just let them go. Like, we don't rehire because the number's about to go down. Nope, it didn't drop. We stayed steady. We have 7,000 to 8,000 players, but they're not all playing at the same time. There's people who traditionally play at this time, people who traditionally play at this time, and it comes in waves. Nope, didn't do that last year. We kept our 2,000 strong through the summer, which is crazy for us. So our player base and how often they're playing and swinging in and out also stabilized a couple years after, like, Dakotne came alive, and that everyone understood it was the standard. We still have, like, the occasional player who played in 2015 who comes back around and is like, what is this? What is happening?
What is happening here?
We're like, okay, we're gonna explain. It's fine. The game has just changed. But part of this is the shift to scalability and accessibility. So now the game scales better. It's more accessible in general. I think is
Accessible in terms of, like, we know that we have a lot of college students, but we also have tons of working people. So we have to build things based around how much time do they have between their jobs or their school to play this. So you need high engagement, low engagement things. So, like, right now, gardening is intended to be a low engagement.
I'll have
Not
more
for
about
you.
that in future
Not for you.
codes. Yeah, it's not low engagement for me. But yes, exactly. High engagement, low engagement. And all of them still have success and failure because they need to, or you will get bored. And if you get bored, you stop playing. Thoughtful automation. We automate things. Hold on. I want the bullet point. I want both bullet points. Okay. So, we want things that make admins' jobs easier. Thoughtful automation. But we don't want things that remove important aspects of gameplay. Anticipation, fear, dread, exhilaration. Yes, I know, those sound crazy, but we don't want it. We don't want to automate breeding. We don't want to do it because you put your breedings in and then you sit at anticipation going, when am I going to get my breeding? Yeah?
And also, talking about breeding in chat is like at least 40% of what I see whenever I come into Discord chat. Like,
Exactly. People be like, oh, breads are rolling, right? Like, that's an important part of our culture and our vibe in general, the anticipation. However, if you put a breeding in, you shouldn't be waiting 4 weeks for it, right? You should be waiting 2 weeks at maximum. So our thoughtful automations are automating things to make it easier for breeding rollers, which to Secret Realm is one of our comes and goes part-time coders. She made those breeding codes and that whole generator, and that sped up breeding so much, but it didn't automate breeding. So we still get the fun of the anticipation without overwhelming people. Because remember, everybody can have like a maximum of 14 or something breedings a month. And some people max that every month. Like all their starters, all of their coffees, all of their passionate,
All their splits.
all their splits. How do we know? It's us. We do it.
We don't do splits.
We sometimes do splits.
Yeah, that's so much effort.
Well, okay, we do splits with new players all the time, like who come in and they're like, oh, I really want cool Tokos. I'm like, here's my like 400 Tokos. Who do you want to split with? You can have all of the pups. I don't know. This is a split for me, but I don't really need these pups. I'm just giving you something nice because I'm good. I don't need it. And that is also a wonderful thing about our community is we're very giving with our fake things because it's good. Come in, feel loved, enjoy where you are, and be part of our community. So we do very thoughtful automations. things that will make it easier to get the job done, but not necessarily replacing the job, depending on what it is. We're never going to fully automate activities for a similar reason.
Well, art judging. Art judging is hard.
Art judging is very hard, and the only way we could pull it off right now is with some pretty unethical AIs, and we're not going to do that. End of story. No one will convince me otherwise.
It would almost have to be like activities admins would yay or nay the image and then kick it over to another queue that just does the role. And
Right.
even at that point, that's not saying
She has so many things she wants to tell you. She has so many. You all can't see done. Just be like, ah! So,
The one thing that I've thought of for more automation in activities still doesn't really eliminate that much, but like having Toko generate a code that takes you to a page with the task that the person specifically wants for that role. But
Right.
even then, you have to store so much data for that. That
I'm
like
working on it.
it doesn't even like save you that much time.
No,
When we are off the recording, we will explain this because I want to tell legs.
I'm working on it. Yeah.
I trust you.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's fine.
it's about
Because
redeems.
I know how my data works, so
Redeems.
and my wonderful, my crazy database. Oh, my crazy database. GoDaddy hates us, and that's okay. We hate them too. No Daddy.
Oh, I should have made them a pin.
Yeah, they should have been a bit
snap.
more Toko's lore. So yes, and we do all of this through thoughtful automation, where we make decisions about what we will and we will not automate. So breedings, no. Could we do it? Yeah, of course we could. It's not that complicated.
We do actually have a question in Discord about it.
Ooh.
So, like, why not completely automate breeding with a random delay, kind of like Flight Rising does? But we kind of touched on that. That is a big aspect of the community of, oosh, Eli's rolling.
Yeah, it is a big aspect of the community. Eli's rolling, and everyone's got their superstitions around it too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're always like, okay, it's a UT breeding. I want this bread roller to touch this. But if my main breedings, I want the other one.
Right? Yeah. No, that's totally legitimate. I'm not going to tell you my superstitions though. I'm not telling you my superstitions. And while we could do it with the delay, I'm trying to find a way to say this really delicately because I don't dislike Flight Rising at all. I play Flight Rising to a degree. I didn't play as much as other people. Their breeding system is a little boring in general, if that makes sense. So just how you come and click a button every day, and it's not as exciting as our breeding system where we sit and we're like, all right, what do we call Eli when he does the thing?
Tornado?
Well, it was Sheep NATO, but we're trying to find the one that vibes with Eli as a name.
Right, we haven't found our
Earthquake? Eli Earthquake?
Eli Quake?
Quake.
Eli Quake.
Eli Quake. That's not too bad. We're gonna find the new one for Eli at some point. It will just someone will say a word and we'll be like, "That's it. That's what we've been looking for this whole time."
Oh, this is a lovely automation that does.
Yeah.
Oh, I should just read this. That's right.
Yeah.
Would auto abandos ever be an option? Keep starters and mains for regular pairs. That's called puppables.
Yeah, they're called puppables. They're in progress.
I think you gave it to Ella to play with.
I think I gave it to Ella. I said if she wanted to take over puppables, she could. Openables, puppables, you get it, my sense of humor. Where you'll just have it in, and then you'll be like, I would like to open that, and it generates a Geno. But I had to get Genos into the system first. Those are in, those are pretty stable. Now I have to figure out how to get them to generate Dakotas without having to do a bunch of work. Once I do that, puppables should come, and I think Ella is taking over it. Because there's so much to do, and I am only 2 hands. So I know this wasn't all about loss and gloom. It was actually tons about how we make these decisions and what systems that we build. We'll go ahead and take any last-minute questions on game design. But this is why you have to lose, so that we have a game that is fun and engaging, and you have a reason to come back and play and see your friends and just hang out and chill with us.
I'm just
Okay.
waiting.
All right, last minute questions.
Can I have an auto
No.
pass DC?
No.
Pass.
No.
Cray.
No.
Damn.
She's gonna trust you even less than I would with it. Yeah.
Can we bring back the Borb companion that gives you an 80% chance to fail at life?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh my god, how does nobody know about the board? Okay, so back in the day, Nobel decided that Inali needed a companion on God, who was it? Korra. She decided that Korra needed a companion just because I think Inali was saying one thing and No wanted the other thing, so No was like, you know what, fine. And so No made this beautiful image of a bird shitting on its feet. And she attached it to the companion wall on Korra and was like, Borb companion. This companion gives this Dakota an 80% chance to fail at life. And I just think that's hilarious. And also, maybe you have a Dakota where you're just like, I need this Dakota to just fail some rolls sometimes, just for funsies.
Or the one that just keeps failing to get their first place win.
Yeah, that guy. That guy.
So Borb companion.
I mean, it could be a slotless Borb. You're like,
Hell
this
yeah.
Toko has ticked me off. Borb companion. I miss my kitchen sink in my bank.
Yeah. That was something we did sacrifice
We
when we
did.
moved to Sakotne. The kitchen
Not
sinks.
truly. We've got DAF as an item in
That's
the
true.
database.
DAF does exist as an item in the database. What does she do? No idea, but she's an item in the database.
No, there's
One
a
time I went
benefit.
into my
Is
bank.
there?
Oh yeah, hold on.
Hold on. I didn't. Someone put a benefit on this.
I thought it was you.
Okay, well, read it. Maybe it was. It depends on what it says.
All right.
If it's good, it's mine.
Definitely. +5 chance to find doves and tea in breeding rolls.
Yeah, that sounds like me. That sounds like me. So,
One time I went into my bank when they were a Google Doc and someone had turned my excellent confirmation into hideous confirmation.
yeah, that was one of the joys of Google Docs. Do y'all remember the Google Docs crash?
Yes! Don't even remind
Trauma.
me. That was horrible.
Flashbacks.
So anyone who didn't exist before who didn't exist before Takotne, our Google Docs where our banks were in a Google Doc. And there was like 6 Google Docs or something.
Yes.
And they just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And Google retains all edit history. So every time someone edited something, we had that as well. So the 2 things that were constant, it was always black cats. Someone would show up with a note and be like, I had a black cat and it is gone. And I'd be like, okay, do you know when it disappeared? No, but I had one. And so now I must go through 50,000 revisions to find this black cat, which then they applied last week to something. And I'll be like, here's your application comment. And they'll be like, okay. And sometimes they'll be like, I'm sorry. But most of the time, they're just like, fine. That was a thing that happened a lot in bank, and that's what you had to take care of. And the other was the crashes. Because it was just so big, and it was so slow, and they'd have to start making new documents, and it was so easy to screw up someone's TT. Mm-hmm. And then we moved to Toko, and I said, please never do any math again. None of you ever do math. Just put the number in the box and hit plus or minus, and let the calculator do the math. Don't do it.
And thank IPAC for that.
Right?
Hey, thoughtful automation.
Thoughtful automation.
There you go.
Since I showed up and started slowly taking things over.
Thoughtful for you, thoughtless for us.
Yes, that is kind of the goal. All right, so that was Why Do I Have to Lose? Woo! Thank you, Dunn.
I'm so sorry that I missed most of that.
It's okay. Thank you for watching my child and for helping me get through this presentation.
Are we still recording?
We are.
So we stopped recording.
Okay, we'll be back in like 5 minutes with the next thing when we decide what it is.
That's what I'm like, I'll